Hello everyone, my name's Shannon Reeves. The topic I chose was a survey on the feeding of eventing horses during competition, which was research done by Mr. Jay Bruner. The findings of his research were published in the Journal of Animal Physiology and Animal Nutrition. And today we're going to go ahead and look at those findings and figure out what those may mean. The purpose of this study was to survey the owners of 25 one-star event horses regarding the animals' diets while they were in competition, and to compare the animals' diets to the recommended equine diets that are so common in scientific literature, and to see what supplements those horses were being given and to figure out if those were efficient and to figure out if those horses' needs were being met. And the way they did this was by, once again, comparing those values to the values given in the standard scientific literature, and by taking blood tests of the horses and figuring out if there was any anomalies in the horse's blood. The first of their findings was that the average one-star event horse at this competition was being given 4.3 kilograms, or a little over 9.5 pounds, of concentrated feed per day. There was quite a bit of variation in this. While the average was that 4.3 kilograms, it did range from 1.5 to 8 kilograms, and that would just depend on the individual horse. Some horses need more calories than others, and that would also vary with the concentrated feed they're being given. Some of those feeds are more calorie dense and nutrient dense than others. This is pretty typical, as these horses are working very hard at this one-star competition. They have a pretty high workload, and therefore their caloric needs are going to be much greater than your average horse that's going to be standing out in a pasture. Another reason why these horses are likely being given the concentrated feeds as opposed to just roughage is that most concentrates nowadays also provide a built-in vitamin supplement, and all of the nutrient values are balanced and right where they need to be, so it takes a lot of the guesswork out of feeding a horse. It was also found that over 50% of these one-star event horses were being fed their hay ad libitum at this competition, meaning that while they were at the competition and they weren't competing, they were given hay free choice. It was also found that nearly 90% of the horses, when they weren't away at a competition, were given pasture time at home so they could graze. This is consistent with standard recommendations that horses receive over half of their diet in the form of roughage as opposed to concentrates, because this really helps their digestive system out and helps prevent colic, ulcers, and other digestive issues like that. The horses that were not given the hay ad libitum, it was still found that even though they were being fed restricted amounts of hay, the amounts of that hay was still pretty high, so they were still being fed in a manner consistent with standard recommendations. It was also found that it was very common for these event horses to be fed supplements as a top dressing to their concentrated feed. The most common of these supplements were some form of salt, which was either given as a salt lick or granulated on top of their feed, or even mixed in as part of the concentrate, and oil, which was just used as a top dressing given on top of the feed. However, it was found that these were given in very small, negligible amounts, and that the blood samples between the horses that were given salt or oil as compared to the horses that were not given these supplements were nearly identical. There was no difference in the levels of glucose, insulin, lactate, free fatty acids, triglycerides, or anything else. So I found it interesting that even though it was very common for these horses to be fed these supplements, it wasn't necessarily benefiting the animals any. So that will definitely require more research in the future to figure out if these supplements are really necessary and if they're helping the horses in any way, hurting them in any way, or if they're just not doing anything. In summary, this revealed quite a bit about these high-level one-star event horses. It was found that all of them were being fed pretty consistently with the recommendations in scientific literature, and that all of their needs were being met. I found this highly unsurprising because if you think if a horse had any sort of caloric deficiency or was malnourished in any way because he wasn't getting the proper vitamins and minerals, it is highly unlikely that he wouldn't be fit or healthy enough to compete at the one-star event level. However, I did find it interesting that they found that the supplements the horses were being given were largely ineffective, because I know as a horse owner myself, it's a pretty common thing to give supplements to show horses. So this may prompt further research in the future to study those supplements and figure out if that's what the horses really need.